What is going on, guys? Welcome to your, let's see, 71st C++ tutorial, and in these next, I want to say 3 or 4 tutorials, I'm going to be covering more about strings. Now, I know that I touched a little bit about strings, and we've actually been using strings this whole series, but I want to talk to you guys specifically about the string class. Now, the cool thing about these next couple tutorials is there aren't a lot of confusing concepts that you guys need to understand, but the string class gives us a bunch of functions that, well, let me tell you guys this. Whenever you're building a program and you don't know how to do something, that you usually want to look it up in the documentation, and if there's, an advanced function in order to do something, it'll tell you how to do it. But some functions, like how to print stuff out on the screen, are essential to have in your memory. And a lot of those functions that are essential to have in your memory are a lot of the string functions. So this is stuff that whenever you're programming, you shouldn't have to look up. So in these next couple tutorials, I'm going to be teaching you guys the core string functions. So the good thing is they aren't confusing. They take like a minute each to learn. The sucky thing is that we do, in fact, need to learn these because if you don't know them, if you do know them, it's just going to make programming a whole lot easier. So the first thing I want to clear up is probably something I should have touched on a long time ago, and that's also something that kind of confuses you guys whenever I was working with files. You guys didn't really understand that whenever I came to, a white space, that whenever I was like reading data in from a file, then it automatically quit reading it in. And let me explain to you guys what I'm talking about. Say, whoa, easy caps locks. Hold on, got a cough. Oh, there we go. Got some milkshake from McDonald's in my throat. So say we have a string called Bucky, and we want to, fill in the string with the user's data. Whatever the user enters from the keyboard, we want to store in this variable called Bucky. So we use the CIN, and whatever they enter is going to be stored in a variable called Bucky. So now we'll go ahead and just print out something on the screen like the string I entered is, and then we'll make a little space right there, and then we'll just go ahead and write the variable name, which was Bucky, and end that line. Well, let's go ahead and run this program, and I want to clear up a couple things. So now we see a blank cursor telling us to input something, and we already know that if we input something like tuna, it says the string I entered is tuna. We understand that much. But what I didn't tell you guys, and I probably should have told you guys this in like the 10th tutorial, but better late than never, is whenever you enter something like tuna sandwiches are good, and you say, alright, well that's my string of text, and you press enter, it only says, the string I entered is tuna. And that brings me to a point that I should have covered in either the 10th tutorial or in the last tutorial when I was teaching you guys how data is read in from a file. Whenever you're using CIN to read data in, whether it's from the keyboard, the user, or a file, when you're using CIN, the end of the input is determined by the first white space character it comes across. So for example, whenever you run this program and you see tuna sandwiches, it doesn't read that whole tuna sandwiches. It reads it until it gets to its first white space. So that's why in the last tutorial, whenever we came across, a new line character or a white space, that's when it stopped and that's when it finished reading in the data. So hopefully you guys understand CIN only reads one small piece of data at a time. So now that you guys understand that concept, let me talk to you guys about another concept, and that is, well, what happens when you do want to read an entire line as one string? Well, say we go ahead and let's name our string something else besides Bucky. Let's name it string X. Whenever you want to read an entire line of data, here's what you do. You go ahead and write the function getLine, and go ahead and write CIN, and just go ahead and write X. And now let's just go ahead and print this out on the screen real quick. End line. And now what getLine does is instead of the end of input being determined by a white space character like a space, the end of the input is determined by a new line character. So getLine is going to wait till we have a new line. In other words, when we're working with CIN, which means input from the keyboard, it's going to wait until we press enter, or basically when we're done typing text on the line. So now when we put tuna sandwiches are good and press enter, it's going to output tuna sandwiches are good. And this entire thing is the string that's going to be stored in X. So again, what I want to stress is whenever you're working explicitly with CIN, it reads one small piece of data. Whenever you want to read an entire line, you want to use getLine. Sorry, I still got that milkshake stuck in my throat. So that is the difference between CIN and getLine, and how the end of the input is determined by a white space or a new line character. So that's not only going to help you a lot when getting information from the user, but also whenever you're working with files, that's how it read the information. I probably should have told you guys that before, but hey, like I said, better late than never. Never. There you go. Okay, let's slow down for a second, Bucky, and gather your thoughts. And alright, I'm good to go now. So now I want to talk to you guys about additional ways to create and copy strings. So aside from having, string Bucky equals yada yada, oops, yada yada yada, and while this is valid and this is the way we created strings before, I want to tell you guys about an additional way to create strings from a string class. Say we want to create a string named S1. We can go ahead and pass it in a constructor of a string like hamster, just like that. And now hamster is going to be equal to S1. Again, like I said, just two different ways of doing the same thing. But why do we need to know this? Because whenever we're working at a company and someone creates a string this way, we don't, think it's something totally different or some class that they made up. We know that, don't freak out. It's just the same way of creating a string. So if we want to create a blank string, we can do something like this. And let me go ahead and create another blank string because I'm going to be showing you guys an example later on. So anytime you want to copy a string, you can do so in one of two ways. The first way, which you guys probably could guess, is you can set string 2 equal to string 1, which is hamster. Now this is a valid way of copying a string, but some people also want to use a function from the string class, and that's called assign. Now assign isn't really a good word. They probably should have just named it copy, but it does the exact same thing. In that, say you want to have S3 and you want to have this, actually, we have it right there. It already pops up for us. Assign string 1. These two, with the exception of being string 2 and string 3, these do the identical thing. Each of these functions copy this string to this variable right here. So again, just to prove it to you guys, let me just print out all these on the screen. We'll print out S1, S2, and S3, and just go ahead and end that line. And whenever we print it out, we can see that all these things, hamster, 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 do the exact same thing. So again, what this line of code does is it's just an additional way where we can go through the string class and we can create a string using the constructor. And what this does right here, this assign, is basically an alternative to copying strings. So with that being said, I want to talk about one last thing, and hey, I guess I can. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about in this tutorial, and I'm probably going to go over 10 minutes, and I hate making videos over 10 minutes, but I'll do it, is strings are arrays of characters. They're not like arrays of characters, and they're not similar to arrays of characters. Strings are indeed arrays of characters. So let me go ahead and make a string called S1, and I'll set it equal to OMG WTF barbecue. Good enough. So now I want to stress that anything you can do to an array, you can do to a string. So let's go ahead and see out something like S1, and say we wanted to output one of these characters, and these characters are elements in the string 0, 1, 2, 3. So this W is S13. Well, in addition to having the explicit index, the string class also has an at method to say, alright, if we put 3 right there, it's going to look in the third element in the array, and it's going to find what character is at that location. So it's a little easier to tell to someone who's like just learning programming. Using the at function is a little easier to see than using the array indexes right there. So let's just go ahead and end that line and print it out, and whenever we print it out, we can see that we indeed get a W. So the point of this lesson is I want to stress to you guys that strings are arrays of characters. And one other cool thing I might as well teach you guys while I have the time is, just like an array where we can loop through it and print out each one of its indexes, we can also loop through a string. So let me go ahead and put int x equals 0, and in order to get the length of a string, it has built-in length function. So we'll put x is less than what's my string name? S1 dot length with no parameters, and we'll just loop through them one at a time using x plus plus. So now what we need to do is just print out on the screen s1.at, and as a parameter we can just go ahead and type in x, because what x is going to do is it's going to say, alright, it's going to start at 0. Remember, this is the 0th element in the array, and it's going to count the length of the string, and it's going to loop basically from the beginning till the end. And the x is going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way until it reaches this last element. So that way, whenever we pass x into the parameter for at, instead of printing just one character, it's going to print the entire string. So let's go ahead and build and run this and check it out. Here's what we printed from before from the last lesson, and now here's the entire string getting printed out. OMG WTF barbecue. So those are some simple string functions. Like I said before, none of these are gonna, twist your brain like polymorphism or maybe working with files are, but there's some core functions that we need to learn, especially the at, the length. Those are two string functions that you're gonna see a lot whenever you're working for a company. Hopefully you're watching this tutorials in the hopes of, getting a job, or at least working with other people on a game project or something like that. You're going to see these functions a lot, so you need to know what they are, how they work, and also some additional ways of creating and copying strings. So now that you understand these concepts, hopefully you memorize them, embedded them in your brain. I want to tell you guys that there are a lot of different things that the string class has to offer aside from, finding the length of a string. So we're going to be covering all those core string concepts in the next couple tutorials. So have no fear, no really confusing topics for now. And I want to tell you guys that you're almost to the end of learning beginning C++. We probably only got like 20 more videos to go. So with that looking forward to, I want to say, guys, thank you for subscribing, thank you for watching my videos, and I will see you guys in the next video.